Some in your conference have suggested that if Democrats are calling witnesses like John Bolton, they may also want to call witnesses such as Hunter Biden. Would you support calling Hunter Biden?
Well, I think we'll be dealing with the witness issue at the appropriate time into the trial. And I think it's certainly appropriate to point out that both sides would want to call witnesses that they wanted to hear from. So when you get to that issue, I can't imagine that only the witnesses that our Democratic colleagues would want to call would be called.
The president has suggested that you should just move to dismiss. You clearly want to get this over sooner rather than later. Why not push to try and dismiss?
Yeah, there is little or no sentiment in the Republican conference for a motion to dismiss. Our members feel that we have an obligation to listen to the arguments, and we've laid out in this resolution an opportunity for everybody to sit there. Remember, senators can't say anything, so they'll have to sit there and listen. To listen carefully to the arguments by both the prosecution and the defense, to follow that up with written questions submitted through the Chief Justice. And that means listening to the case, not dismissing the case.
Can there be a fair trial if there are no witnesses?
Well, you know, if you look at the House product, you really got to wonder what the definition of a fair trial is. They did almost nothing that you would expect the House to do in order to set up this case to be considered by the Senate. And with regard to what witnesses are necessary, we're going to vote on that at the appropriate time after we listen to the arguments.
So now we have Mitch McConnell setting the stage to make any witnesses called by Democrats conditional on the presence of witnesses that Republicans want to call, which, as we all know, is code for Hunter Biden. And here's why that is objectively absurd. The witnesses that Democrats want to call are actually relevant. John Bolton's lawyer said that the former national security advisor knows about, quote, many relevant meetings and conversations connected to the Ukraine pressure campaign at the center of Trump's impeachment that investigators aren't yet aware of. Democrats want to call Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney, whose direct involvement in Trump's extortion scheme was revealed in a New York Times article wherein he asked his top aide, Robert Blair, via email about withholding the military assistance. Blair, who Democrats also want to testify, replied that it'd be possible to withhold it, but, quote, expect Congress to become unhinged if the White House tries to countermand spending passed by Congress. And look, I'm not gonna speak for Robert Blair, but one possible reason for Congress to become unhinged if and when the White House withheld congressionally allocated military assistance is because it's not legal. And Democrats want to call Michael Duffy, an official in the Office of Management and Budget, who discussed with Robert Blair the process for releasing the $391 million in military assistance to Ukraine. Duffy had even written a lengthy email to the Pentagon's top budget official, arguing that the White House wouldn't be responsible for any failure to release the aid to Ukraine by the congressionally mandated deadline. The Pentagon official responded by writing the words, "You can't be serious, I am speechless." In other words, these are relevant witnesses with first-hand accounts of the crimes that Trump committed, witnesses whose testimony we need to hear if we're even going to pretend that this is a fair trial. Now, Republicans are claiming that Democrats should have called these witnesses to testify during the impeachment inquiry in the House, which is as disingenuous a claim as you could find, considering they tried to. But because the administration literally blocked them from appearing, Democrats would have had to appeal to the courts and let a long judicial process play out before they could compel any administration officials from appearing. And Democrats, reasonably, thought it would be more important to actually finish the impeachment inquiry than to allow yet another instance of obstruction in an impeachment predicated on obstruction to slow them down. Now, because Republicans are finally acknowledging that Americans realize that a trial without relevant witnesses would be a sham, their latest desperate defense is to condition the testimonies of witnesses like Bolton or Mulvaney or Blair or Duffy on the testimony of people like Hunter and Joe Biden and even the whistleblower. Even senators like Rand Paul have come out and said that they'd force Hunter Biden to testify should Republicans deign to allow Democrats' relevant witnesses to appear. Now, Republicans know that no illegal activity occurred with any of these people. When Joe Biden, as vice president, called for the ouster of a Ukrainian prosecutor, Viktor Shokin, he wasn't doing so to shield his son, who worked at the Ukrainian national gas company Burisma. He was joining the US government, the European Union, the International Monetary Fund, and anti-corruption advocates in Ukraine who knew how corrupt Shokin was. In fact, by virtue of calling for Shokin's ouster, Biden actually increased the likelihood that Burisma would be scrutinized by a non-corrupt prosecutor. And as for the whistleblower, whom Republicans are foaming at the mouths to discredit, it's too late, considering everything in that person's complaint has already been corroborated. The complaint alleged that Trump asked for a favor from a foreign leader, which he did. It alleged that Trump tried to lock down all records of that call, which he did. It alleged that Trump withheld military assistance from Ukraine, which he did. And it alleged that Trump anointed Rudy Giuliani to act as a shadow State Department to facilitate an investigation into the Bidens, which he did. It honestly wouldn't matter if the whistleblower was the boogeyman Hillary Clinton herself. The complaint has been corroborated, and no smear campaign against the whistleblower is going to change that. But this is all Republicans have. They are desperate to turn your attention away from the facts of this case and turn it into a circus, to try and legitimize their own insane conspiracy theories by forcing the subjects of those theories, like the Bidens and the whistleblowers, to take the stand. It is a sham, and they know it. It is a blatant attempt to try and justify Trump's criminal behavior by pointing the finger at someone else. The GOP might think that they can absolve the president, but the vast majority of Americans already know exactly what he's done, and any efforts from the right to prove otherwise just serve to make them look even guiltier than they already are.